Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Davis, and this is the next session in 15 years of Amazon EC2. I'm a specialist on the Outpost team, so I get the good fortune of working with a lot of the Outpost customers. And what I'm going to talk about today is after 15 years of EC2 and 400 instance types later, in this session, I'm going to have us take a closer look at hybrid workloads and how specific customers are using solutions like AWS Outposts, for example, to meet their hybrid IT goals. Now, it all starts with the idea of the amazing variety of regions and availability zones that AWS has in the market today. We're up to 25 regions and 80 availability zones and lots of other points of presence. And in principle now, with services like Outpost, we can say we can deliver AWS services anywhere you want. Now, we're going to continue to roll out new regions. We've announced new regions for Indonesia and UAE and Switzerland and Spain and Australia and India. And we're going to continue to get closer and closer to where our customers are. But the punchline here is that although our impressive regions will always give you the best scale and economics, we know our customers aren't able to move all their workloads immediately. And this journey requires hybrid IT strategies. And we've been working backwards from our customer requirements to make sure AWS is really the best partner to support those strategies. So let's talk about some of the feedback that we hear from our customers, because different people define hybrid in different ways, and it actually means a lot of different things, depending on the organization you're in. In some cases, hybrid is about a methodical movement to the cloud. Over the course of 4 or 5 or 6 years, it takes time to move lots of workloads. And how do we do that in a consistent and with good continuity in our planning? The next feedback we hear often is that there are specific workloads that are really, really complex. And they have lots of process interdependencies, dependencies on different kinds of hosts and storage systems, and the ability to decompose those complex applications and migrate them to the cloud in a phased strategy, a staged strategy over, say, a 2 or 3 year period, is something that's super valuable, especially for applications like mainframe workloads. Finally, we also have workloads that we would consider to be hybrid in amongst themselves. They straddle between something that's happening on premises or at the edge, and then things that can be done back in our large regions. For example, training a machine learning model might be best done in our regions where you get scale and low-cost compute. But inference, where you want to throw alerts and monitor data streams in real time, inference might be something better done at the edge. So that's a good example of a hybrid workflow. And then lastly, I would say one of the killer requirements that we're hearing from a lot of our customers, and the real benefit of doing hybrid in a good way, is that you have a single governance domain. Having a single envelope of encryption keys and access control and governance policies is very important as workloads move from on-premises to the edge and to our cloud regions. And so there's lots of different definitions for hybrid. What's critical amongst all those definitions, though, and the most important deliverable that we can bring to our customers is consistency. And this is something we heard loud and clear in all of our conversations, that we have to ensure to provide efficiency and solid security and continuity for our customers, that we have that consistency in terms of the infrastructure that the applications are running on, in terms of operational consistency like logging, monitoring, accounting systems, and so forth. Certainly in terms of services and API consistency, we can't have applications behave differently when they run in our regions versus when they run on premises. And this is a big part of being able to write once, run anywhere. And that's one of the really important consistency principles of our hybrid computing efforts. The tool sets are important. How you do CI/CD, how you manage and deploy workloads, how you do logging and monitoring of your workloads, should all be done very consistently using the same tool sets you're comfortable with. And then finally, the ability to bring innovation to your developers anywhere you want it. And so bringing advanced services like our managed container services, ECS and EKS, to run on premises managed database services that offload a lot of the undifferentiated heavy lifting of provisioning infrastructure. These are really important advantages that you can take advantage of in a hybrid strategy. Okay, so when we talk to our customers, the biggest driver for continuing to run workloads on-prem typically has to do with low latency or the need for interactivity to on-premises users or other processes, or possibly in a lot of cases, data sovereignty requirements where data is just not ready to leave the firewall, or you have to keep your data within your country borders. And then finally, we have situations where there's, say, data gravity challenges, where data is being generated on premises, and it's more efficient for you to bring AWS services to the data or to your application rather than sending your data up into an AWS region. And so see, these are some of the workloads that we've seen gravitate towards solutions like Outposts. We're seeing a lot of demand from the telco industry for mobile edge computing and radio access networks. Autonomous vehicles we're going to hear about today in one of our case studies. Medical imaging is really important. A lot of the clinical workloads in healthcare are workloads that need to stay on-prem near those patient populations. Okay, so these are good examples of demand drivers for these hybrid solutions. All right, now let's take a look at what we've delivered recently. Now, over the last 10 years, we've built out a large number of services that allows you to better integrate your on-premises environments with AWS, such as Direct Connect networking or Snowball, which allows you to move data back and forth. And I'll show that here for completeness because Snowball is an increasingly capable compute platform. VMware Cloud is another great solution for hybrid workflows and workloads because it's absolutely the easiest way to bridge traditional VMware environments to AWS regions. So easy migration, disaster protection, and so forth. But today I'm really going to focus on the announcements at our last reInvent that further enable you to consume AWS services where you need it. And that's Outposts, Local Zones, and Wavelengths. And they're all related in some ways. Outpost is where we deliver a fully managed infrastructure offering into your data center environment. Local Zones is AWS managed infrastructure that we can roll out more quickly than our large AWS regions. And you could think of Local Zones as leveraging Outpost racks as part of its infrastructure. And then lastly, Wavelengths is like a local zone, but it's hosted directly in the carrier networks, the CSPs. And we're doing this in support of newly emerging workloads that will really leverage those 5G networks. So let's go into a little bit more detail first on Outpost, and then we'll hear from some customers and how they're using Outpost. Now, we announced this at reInvent a year and a half ago, and it's been a really amazing growth curve for us. Not only does Outpost use the same hardware as AWS regions and the same instance types, but Outpost actually leverages a lot of the same control plane mechanisms, monitoring, patching, and so forth, so you don't have to do all of that heavy lifting, okay? Now, a big part of what we talked about in terms of consistency was that common AWS services run on Outpost as well. So in addition to EC2, we have EBS storage. We have RDS for fully managed databases. We have our container services, ECS and EKS. We have EMR for analytics, ALB, load balancing, Elastic Cache, and the list goes on. We even have an S3 that can run in Outposts. And so there's a really important ability for developers to really take advantage of those services. Now, I'll point out that a really important feature of Outpost is not that it's just better hardware, it's the fact that Outpost is a fully managed infrastructure offering, which makes it super cool. We give you a similar experience when you're running an Outpost to how you would operate in AWS regions. We do all the installation, the break fix of the product, the support, and so forth, so you never need to worry about those things. It's a fully managed infrastructure. And now we're supporting shipments into 60 different countries, providing fully managed AWS infrastructure that can go right into your data center. So let's talk to a couple of the customers and hear what they have to say about Outposts. First, we're going to talk to Morningstar. James Rhodes is the CTO there. And what you hear in Morningstar is that they're really using Outpost as a bridging strategy as they migrate more and more workloads to AWS. It allows them to get their developers moving more quickly and more consistently to AWS. So let's listen to Morningstar.
So our mission is basically empowering investor success, and we do that through a few different channels. We're actually a fairly unique company in the sense that we play in a wide variety of the different parts of the financial services ecosystem. The idea of moving to the cloud was more about how do we unlock the real power of our development force so that they could be more agile, develop faster, and get products of value to the market even quicker than they were. It was a real thoughtful exercise that we did, which was primarily focused around what was the additional value add we could bring to the business by enabling our developers to develop better quality products faster. We chose AWS as our cloud provider for a bunch of reasons, and I think the biggest driver was just adoption by the developer community. I want to be able to achieve is that my developers spend more time developing code than managing infrastructure. So my ultimate objective is to provide as frictionless environment as possible, which is one of the motivating factors for why we chose to go with the Outposts strategy. What I got from Outpost was the ability to have an on-prem footprint that was fully managed by AWS, that I could turn that capacity over to developers to build their own systems on-prem and migrate their own applications on-prem and not have to worry about, well, my database server's on-prem, but my app server's up in region. They could get the same performance of being on-prem. The end benefit to the client, and specifically with the Outposts solution, is our ability to turn things around faster, because we've augmented the process on when teams need infrastructure, whether it's on-prem or in region. It is the same process and it's owned by them. And one of the great things about the technology stack that AWS provides us with is it provides us the ability to do things in a way that not only we as a firm can benefit from, but we can then figure out how to essentially turn that and democratize it and give that out to the world to use.
All right, wasn't that great? Super interesting story about how they're using Outpost as a bridging strategy or as part of a two-step migration to eventual adoption of our regions for a lot of the Morningstar workloads. Next, I had the really great opportunity to actually interview Tom Canziora, the SVP of Engineering from Esports Entertainment. Now, esports, or EEG, is part of a really fast-growing market right now for what we call iGaming, which is the area of online gambling, sports betting, online casino operations, and so forth. So let's hear about that business and what the unique requirements and how EEG is dealing with that.
Hey, Tom, I'm sure glad you could join us today from the UK and share your experience with AWS Outposts. To get started, can you tell us a little bit about your business? What does EEG do?
Hi, Mike. Thank you for having me. We are a diversified company that operates in both iGaming and esports industries. Our mission statement is very simple. It's 3 steps: play, watch, bet. The first step, play. Not only do we operate our own gaming lounges called Helix, but we have also developed our own management system for gaming centers called GGLeap. That allows us to extend our reach to over 600 facilities worldwide. It's an impressive community, and today we have millions of registered players. EG also runs tournaments through our platform EGL.tv. We give out some very impressive prizes in terms of money, as well as unique gifts. I wish I would be able to actually play as well, but unfortunately, the teams are so amazing, I wouldn't have the capability to actually compete. We also engage with audience that want to watch and place bets on games and tournaments. This is a core part of the EG business, and we already have many brands operating in different regulated markets all over the world, including US, hopefully very soon. On top of that, we also operate on online casino business, as well as our sports betting and traditional sports.
Okay, now I understand what you mean by having a diversified business. I guess my next question is, well, how were you able to build all those businesses so quickly?
Division has become a reality thanks to some very successful acquisition. Over the last 18 months, we've acquired at least 9 companies to continue our upward growth curve.
And doesn't that represent a big integration challenge? You have to deal with all these different entities coming together?
Yes, those businesses all have different technology stacks. As part of my job is to consolidate this in a way that allows us to scale the fastest within the global footprint. We're really happy to be with AWS now.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, well, let's talk about Outpost, AWS Outposts. I guess my first question there is, what problems did Outpost solve, and what did you see as the benefits to your organization?
Yeah, we're very excited, about this. So with Outpost, it became very easy for us to address new markets that do require data sovereignty. If we can operate from AWS region, then we will. But for instance, in US, we have to comply with the state-by-state requirement on where and how we operate our business. So Outpost gives us the ability to launch our business essentially anywhere in the world, allowing us to be first to the market and generate new revenue faster. The gambling industry and gaming industry are very competitive. So being first in the new market is absolutely paramount. Now, the other side of being able to quickly scale is that we have this deployment pattern that we can really rinse and repeat. Every time we scale, we can do it faster and at a lower cost with AWS Outpost. AWS takes care of all the infrastructure and we just can focus on launching our software.
Interesting. That's super powerful. So what did you do before we began discussing Outposts?
That's a very good question. In the past, we worked with service providers. We were responsible in that case for everything else, including setting up and managing, for instance, Kubernetes environments. Standing up one of those environments, it turned out could easily take as long as 6 months. What we discovered was that even though we could find cheap hardware, the challenge of hiring people to manage the infrastructure and making sure our stack was consistent and secure across all of those locations was really hard. With Outpost, we think we can land in a market in 8 to 12 weeks or even less, and we can use centralized automation to make sure our operations, accounting, and security are consistent across all of our sites. AWS and Outpost really made that very easy solution for us.
Interesting. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so just adding on top of that, I say, even though we pay a lot of attention to the regulatory requirements, our infrastructure choices also affect the player experience. So even just a few millisecond latency can be felt by the player. So making sure the system is close to our key markets, once again, is very important. So that's a huge advantage that Outpost gives us.
Interesting. So the advantages go to both EEG as a business, but also to your customers. That's awesome. I guess the other, team that has a skin in the game here is your developer team. So how did they feel about moving away from traditional infrastructure and execution environments?
Yeah, the team is pretty excited about where we're heading with Outpost and in AWS in general. Using Outpost, we'll be able to maintain a more consistent set of dev tools, and procedures, service APIs, automation, and security. Is something that we're very passionate about as well. Everything is the same whenever we run in AWS region or have to drop into a specific location like New Jersey in US. The other area where going to focus is innovation, being able to take advantage of managed container service like EKS, managed databases offering through RDS and Postgres, machine learning, and other AWS services. Allows our dev team to really focus on the needs of EEG player community and innovation in a different gambling models.
Interesting. So going forward, what's your plan with AWS and Outpost specifically?
AWS has been an amazing partner to us and supporting us with some very difficult migrations to date. We are not going to stop here. We're still consolidating, IT solution from different acquisitions that we made, and with time we are looking to move all our remaining as well as future operations to AWS. We are all in with AWS for any jurisdiction where we're not able to operate from within the region. So this is a key for us in terms of getting to market faster And as we expand globally, there are very few technology constraints on where we can open up new markets.
All right. Well, that's great, Tom. I appreciate your time today and insight. And I feel like I need to go practice my Fortnite game and go check out some of your businesses. So it's exciting times for that industry, and we appreciate your comments.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to talk next about local zones. So local zones is really AWS managed infrastructure at the edge, and we're now rolling out local zones to more and more major metropolitan areas. And you could think of local zones in some ways like an availability zone that allows us to stretch and put that closer to your metro locations. The reason that we launched local zones is because we had so much demand to bring low latency AWS services to broader locations around the world. And so you can imagine some of the workloads that we're seeing for local zones. Media and entertainment is a big driver. In fact, that's partly why our first local zone was launched in the Los Angeles area, both for content creation as well as for virtual workstation type of workloads. We're also using our local zones for multiplayer gaming as game developers and production studios move into new parts of the world. We also see enterprise customers bring AWS services closer to their enterprises when they have local process dependencies. You'll hear a little bit about that. We're also seeing people use local zones for a lot of machine learning at the edge, as well as talking about content distribution, live streaming, AR, VR, interactivity, and so forth. The first local zone customer I'd like to talk about is Mindbody. And Mindbody is an interesting company. They're a software as a service company that provides cloud-based scheduling and business management software for the wellness industry. They actually influence something like 35 million consumers globally across all of the globe. Let's hear about how they're using local zones for their enterprise migration. According to John Strong, we are using local zones to migrate our complex legacy on-premises applications to AWS without an expensive revamp of our architecture. With a direct connect to local zones, we are able to establish a hybrid environment that provides ultra-low latency communication between applications running in the local zone and our on-premises installations. In turn, this has enabled us to migrate applications incrementally, simplifying our migrations drastically while reducing any business risk with ongoing hybrid deployments. So this is a real common story where customers are using our hybrid solutions as a bridge to eventually using the larger AWS regions. It's a lower risk way for your developers to start accelerating their cloud adoption by selectively sending workloads into the local zone or into an outpost. The next local zone customer I'd like to talk about is Netflix. Netflix, one of our favorite customers, of course. We were talking to Nils Pomerian, the Director of Cloud Infrastructure Engineering at Netflix, who talked about how they use local zones as part of their production workflow now for new media content. He says, every second counts, especially when it comes to the time it takes to compile and render 3D models and animations. AWS local zones, which bring cloud resources closer to our artists, have been a game changer for these applications. By taking advantage of access to AWS's highly performant and cost-effective compute resources, we have been able to migrate portions of our content creation process to AWS local zones while ensuring an even better experience for artists. All right, so this allows Netflix to make a more efficient production pipeline and give the artist a great experience because the latency is very low between their facilities and the local zones. All right, now I'd like to shift gears and talk about wavelengths. And wavelengths, as I mentioned, is a fully managed offering like local zones, but it runs directly in the carrier's network before transactions even get to the public internet. And this allows us to sit at the edge and deliver a really powerful 5G experience for mobile edge computing, for mobile workloads, and for private wireless applications. Okay. And you can see that we, being part of the CSP networks, we've partnered with a number of the major 5G vendors around the world: Verizon, KDDI, SK Telecom, and Vodafone. Now, Wavelength communicates directly with AWS regions with a very high bandwidth efficient connectivity. and provides that same single console, the single management interface to the services hosted in the wavelength zone. Okay, but it's really optimized for that emerging class of 5G workloads. And so this is a super exciting area for the cloud and AWS in general, all of the promise of the 5G market out there. So we're going to hear from a couple different customers in these various areas. So we're going to hear from a customer talking about connected vehicles and autonomous vehicles, but we also have a lot of folks working in the areas of industrial process control, smart factory development, smart buildings, smart cities, lots of workloads where there's IoT data being aggregated, where there's logic at the edge, and logic and control at the edge, and lots of heavy dependency on interactivity to make sure that the end users have an excellent experience, including augmented reality and virtual reality, both for entertainment as well as in the commercial and enterprise space. Okay, so we're going to listen to a couple more videos. First, we're going to hear from Origo. Origo is really interesting because they're providing command and control systems for autonomous vehicles operating in the UK. So let's take a break and listen to what they're working on.
Cambridge is the home of innovation. We're renowned for it. But in particular, as a thriving city, we have issues of congestion. So thinking about the next generation of public transport is very important to us.
I'm here in Cambridge today to check out a pilot with Origo and their autonomous shuttle buses that run from the Park and Ride to the university in Cambridge. We are here together with AWS, who we've partnered with to bring the AWS cloud closer to the devices.
AWS Wavelength is a cloud compute service and storage service deployed deep in the Vodafone network, providing our customers with low latency and high bandwidth connectivity.
By placing the cloud from strategic points in the Vodafone 4G and 5G network, we can deliver a much better experience, more intelligent, more contextually aware, so that these vehicles can be smarter and autonomous.
We're running, for the first time outside North America, the ability to use the wavelength computing system. Our vehicles have lots of sensors on them. They collect a lot of data. We run about 0.5 gigabyte of data a minute. That data comes from the sensors on the vehicle and it gets stored on the vehicle, but also sent up through the cloud into the AWS servers. We're looking also for potential scenarios there to learn, and we also have the ability to send data back to the vehicles.
The trial is very exciting because it shows a new use case that's powered by edge compute and Vodafone's 5G network. And for our customer Origo, it enables them to innovate faster and deploy new services.
For autonomous vehicles to be a marketable and acceptable system, you really need to be able to remove the safety supervisors from within the vehicles. And that's a big step. So the key benefits to us using edge computing are the low latency of the data communications, the cyber resilience of not having all that data exposed to a public internet, and the high bandwidth and guaranteed service levels that you can get. Vodafone and AWS together give you that ability to bring a business-ready solution.
All right, super interesting presentation. I'm looking forward to riding on one of those buses the next time I'm over in the UK. Morehouse College is another customer that's really interested in using wavelengths for virtual reality and augmented reality in the educational environment. And so you can see some of the work that they're already doing with us in this area. Super interesting. So let's take a break and listen to Morehouse College.
My name is Jose Malabo. I'm Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer and Chief Revenue Officer at Morehouse College. Morehouse College is located in Southwest Atlanta. It is a historically black college founded in 1867. Like most colleges that went virtual, all of a sudden what was once a in-person experience in terms of recruitment and marketing became entirely virtualized. Our experience at Morehouse College is about space and place. We're a small school. We're only about 2,200 students and allowed for a personal touch and relationship. And to me, it was a no-brainer to look at XR and VR solutions.
I'm Ian Knott. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Atho, and we build a platform called Beam. Beam is a telepresence platform designed for the new XR landscape that allows people to communicate face-to-face as if they're really there through full-size holographic avatars. The experience with Beam and Morehouse is simple. Through the admissions counselor, you get a simple code, and you're able to then join right from your Android or iOS device face-to-face via telepresence as full-body avatars. We've 3D scanned elements from the campus so that now when they're in that experience face-to-face with that student counselor, they can actually beam in that mini map of the campus. They can go for a guided tour all around it. The student can pick up and rotate and manipulate all in augmented reality or XR space, all while being co-present in real time with that student counselor.
The experience is amazing. They can literally walk what are truly hallowed grounds of our campus. They can see the statue in front of Martin Luther King's chapel. You can walk through some of the buildings that Spike Lee learned his craft in. It's seamless, it feels so real. We like to think Morehouse's experience is unique, and this gets us as close as you can get to that without coming to campus.
As you think about XR as a communication medium, when you're actually tracking the eyes, you're tracking the mouth, the body, and you're relaying all that in real time, the little subtleties start to add up whenever there's lag in that experience. And so with 5G mobile edge compute, the idea that we can get closer to that time, not in a lab, but actually on a device out in the real world, the closer we get to delivering a true co-present experience. And so when you think about the Beam 5G MEC experience, we're taking our services running on AWS, and they're immediately connecting through Verizon 5G ultra wideband into that mobile device. What we've seen from real world tests is 2 to 3 times reduction in that round trip. That can really only be achieved on mobile edge compute and 5G ultra wideband.
Morehouse is nothing if not a brotherhood of men on a mission to lead lives of service and consequence. This takes that sense of community and brotherhood all the way out into the prospective student space, and I think that's so powerful for what we do at the college.
So if I look back on all 4 of the videos we listened to and the case studies that we read, there's really a set of common things that are coming out loud and clear from our customers that are leveraging these hybrid options. Number 1 is this recurring theme of phased migration, being able to leverage these hybrid solutions to accelerate your goals towards cloud adoption. And that includes taking complex workloads and breaking them down into smaller chunks that could be more easily refactored using hybrid solutions. Okay? Secondly, meeting regulatory requirements will continue to be important now and into the future. There's lots of data sovereignty regulations that are being imposed in a lot of different countries around the world, and AWS now has the ability to allow you to meet those requirements while still continuing to move towards cloud adoption. Okay. The next principle we hear is about developer efficiency, about developer productivity, being able to take advantage of higher level cloud features while continuing to run your workloads on premises or in local co-location sites. So write once, run anywhere. Build for the cloud, but your decision about where and how you run those workloads is independent from the developer. Okay. Lowering the cost of incremental deployment is really interesting if you're in a market like the gaming market, where you may have to deploy tens or hundreds of POPs to support your workload around the world. You need to know that when you deploy the next instance and the next instance after that, it becomes rinse and repeat. That AWS manages that infrastructure and takes care of the infrastructure. All you do is launch your software there. And so that's one of the recurring themes with these hybrid solutions. Lower latency is really important when you have process dependencies on-prem, or you're working with a process control or manufacturing that are sensitive to latency, or users that want interactivity to processes running at the edge. Oftentimes, this is where we might see a hybrid workflow where some operations are happening at the edge, but others, like archival that takes advantage of cheap storage, can be operating in the larger AWS regions. And so using AWS regions and local zones where you can, and using Outposts where you need to operate from your own data centers. And so this is really about choice and rethinking what the topology of your workloads looks like to take the most advantage of what happens at the edge versus what happens in the core of the cloud. All right, So let's think about next steps. Where could you go from here? What should the marching orders be for everyone out there? Okay, well, number one, everyone needs to eliminate the undifferentiated heavy lifting from your business and focus on innovation and accelerating your goals towards hybrid IT. Now, the way we can do that is to walk through a set of simple steps. So let's identify the workloads that are new candidates for cloud migration, knowing that these solutions exist. In other words, if you can bring AWS services into your data center, what things would you do differently? And in every customer we've talked to, allows us to open up that backlog of applications to be migrated and think about how we can accelerate those migrations. Secondly, challenge the developer teams. The developer teams are anxious to take advantage of cloud functionality, and now they can do that for applications running on premises. And so using fully managed container services, fully managed database services, super valuable to your developer teams because it allows them to move faster and innovate more. Okay? Rethink the factoring of these complex legacy workloads, including mainframe operations. What parts of that complex workload can now be refactored using hybrid solutions while maintaining continuity and proximity and meeting all the latency requirements for the overall workload to continue to run in harmony. Finally, implement hybrid workloads such as DR. Again, if you can redevelop your applications to take advantage of cloud services at the edge, how would you use that to better protect your environment from a DR perspective? How would you use the governance domain, a single governance domain that includes access control, encryption keys, being consistent from on-premises all the way up into your cloud regions? And identify R&D consolidation opportunities. If you have dev teams that are working on legacy software that can now move to cloud-based development, does that mean you can consolidate and create efficiencies in the code development, in the tool sets that you use, in the operational best practices, the accounting, the logging, the monitoring, and the analytics you use on all those operational practices? Are these all consolidation opportunities to allow you to run a more efficient operation? So thanks for the time today to let me talk about some of our hybrid offerings and how our customers are using them. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. I'm going to go have some cake later because it's the 15-year anniversary of EC2. And did I mention we have 400 different instance types now available? Well, that makes us the most mature cloud computing company in the industry, and I'm really proud to be here. Happy birthday, EC2.